5. We're turning now to the intense situation in Libya, where heavy fighting continues. The rebels fighting for control are now offering a $1.3 million reward for Gaddafi, dead or alive. And although his whereabouts remain unknown, the defiant leader vowed to continue fighting in an audio recording that he released last night. But with Gaddafi still at large and no end in sight, will the United States ramp up their involvement and send ground troops into the region? Monica, I want to go to you first on this. The country, war fatigue. Barack Obama says no boots on the ground. What do you think the U.S.'s role should be going forward?
Well, the most euphoric day after a dictator's overthrow is always the day right after he's overthrown. We still don't even know where he is. We don't even know if he's in control, even just of a portion of Tripoli. But it does look like his days are pretty much over as the leader of Libya. But then the hard work starts. And what is going to happen here? Because we've seen this happen in Egypt. We're seeing it across the Middle East, where we were so celebratory about the Arab Spring. It's now turning into an Arab winter, because what comes after that is usually a power vacuum. And we've seen that the strongest, most organized elements in the Middle East, like the Muslim Brotherhood, like Al-Qaeda, like other extremists, rush in to fill that void. I mean, in the situation of Egypt, the Muslim Brotherhood waited 80 years for this moment. They're not going to blow it. And in the case of Libya, you have more Al-Qaeda terrorists in Libya than any other country outside of Saudi Arabia. You know that they're waiting for this moment to seize it. So what America should do is make sure, not necessarily boots on the ground, but you've got to be doing something diplomatically with the rebels. Again, we don't have any idea who these guys are, to try to get a pro-U.S. and pro-Western regime out of this.
Well, the U.S. dropped 2 bombs in Libya over the last 24 hours, so that is consistent with the no boots on the ground strategy. But this war, Eric, is costing the United States, even though no boots on the ground, leading from behind, $896 million since July 31st. Worthwhile money?
Well, I think so. I'll give Mr. Obama credit for this. I mean, no boots on the ground is fantastic. It's costing $1 billion, but, you know, frankly, we have probably somewhere around $50 billion of assets, Gaddafi's assets here in the U.S. We can certainly pay ourselves back with that, and we should. Maybe not go to the extent Donald Trump thinks we should take their oil, because we have some right to it. I don't think we do. But certainly, I mean, important to note that he didn't put any boots on the ground, American lives at risk. I know NATO, who knows what's going to go on with NATO, and we fund NATO. But I'll give him credit, Bob. I think that was a great gesture, a great effort. No American lives lost?
I'm in total shock, and I'm glad to hear you say that, and thank you very much. And Monica, I agree with you. You know, it always is true, isn't it, that when they do overthrow governments, the first day is the best one. So it happened in Iraq, and this will be a weaning out point. But let me make a point about this country. It was colonized for a long time. It was only 40-some years ago that the Europeans left. The last people they want to see put boots on the ground are Europeans or Americans. And we'd be crazy to go in there even if we had the resources and the people to do it. There's two groups that could go in and do it. Either the African Union could go in and do it. I think they would be acceptable. Or the UN, with the right mix of the UN. But I think the idea of a European or American presence on the ground would be so reminiscent of the colonization days that it would be disastrous.
The UN has convened a meeting of Arab nations to meet and has invited the Libyan rebels. What do you think the contribution should be from the Arab nations?
Well, I mean, look, they're going to have to take the lion's share putting this thing back together. It's going to take, just on oil alone, which was 95% of their exports came out of oil. They're down to about 10% production. It's going to take them 2 or 3 years to get there. So they're going to have to get money from someplace. They certainly aren't going to get it from us anymore. So my guess is the Arabs will probably put up money. But let's remember now, there was only a couple of Arab groups that joined the League against Libya. And there's some anger still against those that did not.
You know, just very quickly, we get it over to Greg, but the French and the British, I'm sure, will make those loans, because they're the ones who buy almost all of that Libyan oil. And they would be wise investment on their part.
So leading from behind might actually be a smart strategy in this case.
Right.
Greg, I want to ask you. So Gaddafi ran out of his compound, and we saw footage yesterday of the rebels storming the compound. They were wearing his clothing, they were ransacking his books, and he said today on a radio address, even though we don't know where he is, he said that was a strategic move. We left because that was part of the big plan.
It's actually a great strategy to always say it's strategic. Whenever I come home drunk without my shirt on, I tell my wife it's strategic. But here, when we talk about whether it's got to be boots on the ground or not, it's got to be Boots and the Beatles. We need to introduce the best of our Western culture to these young people. These are young people tired of tribalism. Radical Islam is a death cult. And to prevent them from getting involved in that, you've got to introduce them McDonald's, Metallica, and Alexander McQueen.
By the way,
The problem is
they
don't have jobs. They don't have jobs to buy this stuff.
Yeah, but
That's
you know what?
the big issue.
That didn't stop young Russians from getting obsessed with Western culture, and that really helped. That really helped
Did
with
you
the
see that dude
All
with
right.
Gaddafi's hat on?
Yeah,
Is that not
I
a
think
cool
they need
picture or
Bob.
what?
That'll be great.
Yeah,
Coming
that's
up.
exactly what they need.
Coming up, Jeb Bush issues a staunch warning to GOP 2012 contenders, and another new poll gives President Obama more reason to worry. It's your 2012 news when the 5 continues. Stay close.